Hi everybody, welcome back to another gaming video. So recently I was really interested in taking a look at the Dreamcast and the Wii U and taking a look at the comparison of how similar were they. Although both were not really commercial successes, they did have some great games for their systems and really unique features that made them stand apart from other systems during their time in the spotlight. Both were rather short, especially the Dreamcast had a shorter time as far as being a viable console system on its current generation compared to the Wii U, even though it had a much larger library. If you didn't really quite know about that, go and take a look at my prior video. So going back on the Dreamcast, I was really interested in taking a look back again as far as what games were left in Japan. So definitely not every game that comes out by major corporations published in Japan necessarily make it overseas. There are lots of great games that end up staying in Japan. However, what I find particularly odd is when a game has good commercial success, however, doesn't find its way over to the States. However, the Dreamcast was very specific because it came out in North America in the fall of 1999 on September 9th. And however, before 2001 came around, it was already abandoned by Sega. So there was a very short period of time for games to come out. Now, one thing that was beautiful about the Dreamcast was the fact that it was built on Naomi architecture. The Dreamcast and Naomi are like siblings. The only difference between the two is simply memory. So there are other things as well, but just for the most part, if a game came out in the arcades on the Naomi architecture, it usually was a pretty easy port over to the Dreamcast. So starting off with the best games that came out in Japan for the Dreamcast but never made to the States on the Dreamcast, but found its way to North America on another system. We start off with Capcom versus SNK2. This was, of course, developed by Capcom. It's a 2D fighter. It's a successor to Capcom versus SNK, which found its way on the PlayStation 1 and the Dreamcast in North America. However, the sequel did not make its way to the Dreamcast in North America. I was very heartbroken. This was a game that I imported as soon as it came out, and it found its way in North America on the GameCube, the PS2, and the Xbox. However, the Dreamcast was left holding out, not being able to have it in North America. So definitely a great game to pick up. And then not to be outdone, but a different genre altogether, is Chaos Field. And this is a great shoot 'em up developed by Milestone. So this game came out on the Dreamcast. However, it found its way two different ways in two different generations. The first was on the GameCube. It definitely found its way as a late release. And then it found its way as part of a compilation, which was the Ultimate Shooting Collection for the Wii. So definitely that Ultimate Shooting Collection, based upon if you were to get the games on it on their original releases, which would have been the Dreamcast, you have been spending, its value's worth well over $150, $200 by far. So definitely worth its money. The price has definitely gone up because of the scarcity as far as shoot 'em ups this day and age. So if you have a Wii or a Wii U, definitely look for that game, pick it up, because it's definitely worth picking up. And certainly if you're trying to be a completionist or definitely want to look for the Dreamcast, certainly you can definitely import Chaos Field. Next up is Cleopatra Fortune. Now, it's not really well-known puzzle game developed by Altron. However, it's found its way on the PlayStation 1 in North America, even though it was released on the Dreamcast in Japan. Now, it's a really expensive import. I mean, definitely as far as one that I didn't really see much, if ever, on eBay, but definitely as far as looking for prices recently, it is definitely a three-figure game. However, you can find the game for $10 or less on the PlayStation 1 in North America, which is a pretty good bargain. Next up is Concept 2. So this is a game, it's almost like a tactical board game, almost like Monopoly of sorts. This was developed by Omaya Soft. It found its way in North America, published by Capcom. However, it was also published in Japan, and it was released on the Sega Dreamcast. And so definitely, there's going to be a language barrier because it's not translated. So definitely with some of these imports, certainly if it came on the arcades, usually it's not too hard to pick up and play. However, Concept 2 might be a little more difficult. If you have some good experience with Japanese or willing to learn, certainly might be worth picking it up. Next one is F1 World Grand Prix 2. So the original one, developed by Video System and sequel as well, it's a racing simulator. The original made its way to North America on the Dreamcast, among other systems. However, the sequel did not make it over from Japan, but it did find its way into PAL territories. So if you like racing games, it might be worth picking up. Next one is another great 2D fighter. That's Guilty Gear X, which was developed by Arc System Works. And definitely, as far as didn't find a really broad audience for this release, it only made its way to North America on the PlayStation 2. The original Guilty Gear was only on the PlayStation 1. However, Guilty Gear X, if you're looking for importing it, definitely can find it on the Dreamcast. Certainly, Guilty Gear series has had a pretty good lifespan in North America ever since the original Guilty Gear X came out on the PS2, and it's a prequel on the PlayStation 1. Next up is a really neat game developed by Smilebit, which is one of Sega's internal development houses, and it's a real-time strategy game called 100 Swords. If you're a fan of the Sega Saturn series of RPGs of Dragonforce, it definitely has that Dragonforce look to it. And that was the game I was really hoping would find its way onto the Dreamcast in North America. And sadly, it never made its way onto any console in North America. It actually came out as a budget title release by Activision for the PC. So definitely, I'm not sure how much it is now just because it was a budget release. It didn't have a lot of advertising for it, but definitely can be found. So definitely, if PCs this day and age should have no problems running it. So, but if you're looking to try to find it for your Dreamcast, want something that's similar to Dragonforce with a tactical role-playing type feel to it, go and look for it. Next up is another great, probably one of the all-time shooters of this console generation most recently, and that is Ikaruga. Another masterpiece by that development house Treasure. So that's a shoot 'em up. It's a spiritual successor to the Sega Saturn and STV classic Radiant Silvergun. Sadly didn't make its way onto the Dreamcast in North America, but it found its way onto the GameCube. So definitely, if you don't have a GameCube but you have a Wii, certainly you can get the game and put it in your Wii and play it. It definitely has found its way on digital distribution. It's available on Steam. You can find it on the Xbox as well. I believe it's also on the PlayStation Network. So definitely digital distribution is out there. However, if you want a physical version released in North America, the GameCube is your only place. So definitely take a look for it. So it's similar to Chaos Field. Another one is Crows or Crows, depending on how you call it. It's developed by Milestone. This is another shoot 'em up. So unlike Chaos Field, which found its way onto the GameCube, this only found its way in North America onto the Wii in the Ultimate Shooting Collection. So another great shooter, definitely worth picking up if you don't have it already for the Dreamcast. Another one is actually a trilogy of sorts of fighting games, and that's SNK's all-time classic series, The King of Fighters. So during the North America short lifespan of the Dreamcast, we saw King of Fighters 99 and King of Fighters Evolution, so which was actually King of Fighters 98 and 99. However, in Japan, we also saw the release of King of Fighters 2000, 2001, and 2002. However, to play those games, we saw those come out on the PlayStation 2 in North America. So definitely, if you're looking for that King of Fighters itch, you need to be scratched, you want to keep your years, your releases consecutive, definitely. If you can't find it on Dreamcast or want to save some money, you might be better off looking for the PS2 versions. Next up is a pretty neat arcade game. This is Mobile Fighter Gundam Federation vs. Zeon. So this was an arcade release mech fighting Gundam game developed by, I believe it was developed by Band Presto, but published by Capcom in the arcades. Another Naomi arcade game. We did see Gundam Game 1 released in North America. However, this game takes it over the top with more, better graphics, better action. However, sadly, again, it did not make it to North America. This was one I actually had imported from National Console Support years back, shortly after it came out, because I was really hesitant that the game would actually make it to North America, and sure enough, I was right. So to a certain extent, it ended up finding its way to North America on the PlayStation 2. So this is one that can be had for a pretty decent price in comparison to the original Dreamcast release. Next up is an action game, tank action called Panzer Front. So this is developed by ASCII Entertainment, and it was a Dreamcast release. However, unlike some of the other ones that found its way onto newer hardware, this found its North American release on the PlayStation 1. So definitely, if you're looking for perhaps the best version to play and you're not shy about trying to overcome any kind of language barrier, it might be worth picking this one up just for better graphics in comparison to PlayStation 1 counterpart. Next up is one of the, I guess, most fun puzzle games you can take a look at, and certainly has been seeing additional releases, and that is Puyo Puyo Fever. This was actually a Sega developed puzzle game. So initially I believe the Puyo Puyo series was built by Compile, however Sega bought them. And I think the first release that Sega had developed as far as the Puyo Puyo franchise is actually Puyo Puyo Fever. So one neat thing about it was that if you actually picked it up for the Dreamcast in Japan, was that when you put it into your Dreamcast, I think it did some sort of different backgrounds and such because of additional firmware it had. So it did something additionally special to your Dreamcast if you had it. Sadly, we did not see it on the Dreamcast. We only saw it for the Nintendo DS and the GameCube in North America. However, there was, I believe, a PlayStation 2 release in PAL territories. So if you have a PS2 that can play different territories and such, it might be worth picking up. Next up is one that has probably the most difficult name, or at least one of the most difficult names for a game on the Dreamcast, and that one's known as Radurgy or Radio Allergy. Definitely a different spelling, and this is another one of those games that was developed by Milestone. It's another shoot 'em up or shmup, and it found its way on the Ultimate Shooting Collection for the Wii. So unfortunately, there was no other system release where you could play this game in North America, and the other option would just be importing it. So it may have different versions in Japan, however, it graced the consoles with the Dreamcast. Next up is one that people would probably think like, wait, didn't we see this? Not quite. So one of the groundbreaking titles for the Dreamcast that really set on the map to show the big step as far as making a new console transition for the Dreamcast was Capcom's very own Resident Evil Code Veronica, or Biohazard Code Veronica as it's known in Japan. Definitely was a big system seller. It had gorgeous graphics. It still really holds up well today with great gameplay, great graphics, great story. However, one thing that came out in Japan that did not show its way to the United States was that there was an updated version, Biohazard Code Veronica X, or Resident Evil Code Veronica X, which had additional content, additional scene with Wesker in it, and it found its way to North America on the PS2. So definitely, PlayStation owners were not to be left out because they had Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3, besides some spin-off shooters and such. However, definitely PlayStation 2 owners definitely want to have Code Veronica and not have that stuck on the Dreamcast, and certainly Capcom wanted to make the most of most money as possible utilizing a game they already developed, and that was definitely Code Veronica. So there is Code Veronica X, however, it's in Japanese only for the Dreamcast in Japan if you want it on the Dreamcast. So it is what it is. Next up is one that's not really popular franchise, but we've seen releases ever since the PS2 days, and that's Romance of the Three Kingdoms. So the release that came out on the Dreamcast was actually Romance of the Three Kingdoms 6. Now, similar to Cleopatra's Fortune, this is one that released on the Dreamcast. However, the only version we saw in the United States to come out for the 6th iteration of this series was on the PlayStation 1. So definitely not a popular series, and definitely when it comes to language barriers, this is probably one of the steepest ones as far as on this list goes. So if you're a diehard koi, strategy gamer, and you got to have every single one, feel free to import it. I think it's not a really expensive game, but it's probably not common enough to find it on the regular. Next up is one to where a lot of people will wish they could have played this game in North America. Unfortunately, they didn't. And that game is Sama de Amigo version 2000. So we saw Sama de Amigo in full action. It was definitely one of Sega's mascots that they rode during the time when the Dreamcast was in full force, along with Ulala from Space Channel 5, Allen Iverson from the NBA 2K series, Randy Moss for NFL 2K. People knew that fun little monkey shaking those maracas in Sama de Amigo. However, version 2000 added additional content, lots more songs. However, it only found its way for release in Japan on the Dreamcast. It never found its way on their system. However, the Wii North American version, or actually worldwide version, included the content from Sama de Amigo and Sama de Amigo version 2000 all in one package. So you can find Sama de Amigo on the Wii in North America at your local GameStop for probably under $3. So Definitely, maybe not as cool as being able to shake maracas using a weak controller and such, but still, if you want to have the additional content, it's going to be your best option possible. Next up, you guessed it, another shooter, and that is Shikigami no Shiro 2, also known as Castle of Shikigami 2. This is another shoot 'em up, and definitely during the end of the lifespan of the Dreamcast, those were some of the most common games we saw. It was either budget visual novels, which no one ever knew much about because of the language barrier, or it was shooters, and thank goodness for those shooters. So this game, sadly, when it came out to the United States, unfortunately not on the Dreamcast in North America. However, it found its way on the PS2. A lot of people complaining that it had a really poor translation. However, this translation or not, at least the gameplay is solid. So, that's a shooter that you can find for a pretty good price if you're looking to pick it up. And so definitely take a look for it, Castle Shikigami 2. The only place to find it is on the PS2 North America. Alright, second to last one. I already mentioned one of the characters, and that is Space Channel 5 Part 2. It came out in Japan. Unfortunately, we did not see it come out in North America for the Dreamcast, but we did get to see Ulala, Space Michael, and the rest of the gang on the PS2. H-Tech had published a compilation which had Space Channel 5, the original, and Part 2 on the PS2 in one nice package. And this was one that when I saw that come out, I was like, gotta pick that up, because being able to play that game, it was a lot of fun playing Space Channel 5. It was one of those games that had so much personality. I mean, I think like Ulala hosted like MTV Music Awards back in 1999 or something like that. So definitely one of those games when you think about the Dreamcast, you can't help but think Space Channel 5 is one of those first games that put rhythm action, fun, just over the top zaniness into play, and made the rhythm games more than simply people thinking about just Dance Dance Revolution. So it made it more common. I think it helps set the path for things like Hatsune Miku to come out to North America. Alright, the final game on this list. So this is yet another shoot 'em up, and this is actually one that is a little different from all the others in the fact that it never found a North American release on a current console generation as Dreamcast. What I mean, it didn't find its way on the PS2 or the GameCube or the Xbox. We actually had to wait another console generation, and that was as an HD remake. That's the shooter Under Defeat HD. That was a G-Rev developed game which came out in North America only on the PS3. So there was actually an Xbox 360 release, however, I think that was just in PAL territories, and the PS3 as well in PAL territories, but North America, we were stuck with just the PS3 version. So finding the original one on the Dreamcast is a very expensive endeavor. You're definitely looking at a $100 plus game. So definitely for less than half the cost, you can find the game as an HD remake for the PS3. So interesting in that it's not your typical shoot 'em up. It looks a little bit more like, probably more like Zero Gunner 2. It's like a helicopter game. You can change directions. So for those looking for something different from their shoot 'em up experience, definitely something worth checking out. So if you're the kind of person who likes to be a completionist, will have every single game for a system, however, perhaps considering budget, certainly looking for some of the North American releases on different systems might be your best way to go to save a little extra money, because definitely the Dreamcast is highly sought after, and games that used to sell for $15, $20, $30 are now looking like $70, $80, $100, $150 in this day and age. So if you have some of those, count yourself fortunate that you have it for your collection. The Dreamcast is a great system. So, but definitely, hopefully this was a video that provided some information for those curious about what games did not make it to North America that were left in Japan. So hopefully you liked what you're seeing. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and click the subscribe button, click the bell for notifications. This is Kermit the Gaming Hermit. I'll see you next time. Take care.